Hey guys, by Austin Ramos, the Miami Dolphins defeated the Houston Texans 28-3 in their Week 2 preseason matchup this past Saturday. And let's just jump straight into some highlights. First play of the game, Tua gets picked off by Denzel Perryman. Luckily, he was able to make the play and not allow him to get a pick six. Dolphins defense was able to hold him out and stop them on fourth down, leading to this 97-yard drive led by Tua and the Miami Dolphins, ending up in a Raheem Mostert touchdown. Following that drive, we get Skylar Thompson, who has to catch a high snap from Connor Williams, ended up getting strip sacked by Will Anderson, the number 3 overall pick. Devon Achane got a big run. CJ Stroud looked pretty decent, found Mike Brown for a deep pass. Skylar Thompson finding Savon Ahmed for an easy touchdown in the flat. And then Savon Ahmed once again with a big 65-yard rush. But you can't let the safety catch you, man. You got to outrun him. Anyways, that led to the Skylar Thompson and Braxton Berrios touchdown, which was an absolute beauty. And you got to love the sauce there. Skylar Thompson once again finding Chris Brooks, and this will be the final touchdown for the Miami Dolphins. It was a 19-yard receiving touchdown. And it was a pretty amusing game to watch. Dolphins were able to dominate the Texans. Shutout would have been nice, but I mean, can't be too picky with it. Offense was looking good, defense was looking good. Special teams was iffy, but then again, the special teams currently is a lot of guys just trying to make the roster in any way, shape, or possible. So aside from that, I think it was an all-around well game by the Miami Dolphins. That first play was rough to see, but luckily, Dolphins defense came in 4 and out, were able to shut down the Houston Texans, and were able to bounce back themselves by having a 97-yard drive following that, is resulting in a touchdown to really kind of punctuate, just not being walked over by this Houston Texans team. This Houston Texans team is interesting to think about. They are a very young team loaded with talent, and it's just like, can this talent be tapped in correctly? Because if that's the case, then that would be huge for this Houston Texans team. For the Miami Dolphins, they have a lot of talent, whether it's their own talent that they drafted, put together, or that they, ended up trading for example, Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, etc. There's a good mix of all that type of talent all around, which is very interesting to see when it all comes together. Big battles going on for the number 3 wide receiver spot. I think Braxton Berrios is taking the lead on that. Cedric Wilson had a couple plays today, but Robbie Chosen-Anderson was not really, I don't even know if he suited up. I don't recall seeing him at all, but if he was pretty much a non-factor because I don't even think I see him on the stat sheets, honestly. Let me see real quick. Yeah, he was on the field. He was targeted once. Aside from that, I think Braxton Berrios is running away with this wide receiver 3 competition. It's going to be interesting, though, because when you think about it, those 3 wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Braxton Berrios combination would be pretty small out there on the field. So if you can get some big corners or big safeties on them, it's not going to be a good day for them. And if we don't have like a big threat like we did in terms of Mike Gesicki last year as a big receiver, things can be a little bit troublesome sometimes. But I think their speed and shiftiness will make up for it. And the precision passing by Tua will definitely help out with that as well. But yeah, I think the offense is in good hands with Tua under helm. I think he took a couple falls and he was able to brace himself, which is something that is new for Dolphin fans. It's the first time he's played football in, I believe, 237 days or something like that since Christmas. He hasn't played in a football game since Christmas. That game against the Packers. So, briefly going to skim over some of the stats. I'm going to start off with team stats real quick. Dolphins had 23 first downs to Houston's 10. Third down efficiency, Dolphins were 9 of 15 on third down. Houston Texans were 2 of 12. Dolphins were 4-4 on fourth down, and Houston Texans were 1 of 3 on first down. Dolphins ran 69 plays. Houston Texans ran 48. Dolphins had almost 400 yards of offense, had 398. Texans didn't even surpass 200 with 186. Let's see what else is big. Passing wasn't crazy. It was pretty balanced. 193 from Dolphins, 154 from the Texans. Rushing is where the biggest separation was. 205 rushing yards for Miami Dolphins, 302 rushing yards for the Houston Texans. Penalties were big. Dolphins allowed 6 penalties for 34 yards. Texans had 7 for 35, so almost pretty balanced there. Dolphins made the red zone 4 times and scored each and every time, and they only had 1 turnover, which was that first play of the game. Some key stats. Let's start with Tua. 5 of 7, 61 yards, 1 interception. CJ Stroud went 7 of 12, 60 yards. Skylar Thompson for the Dolphins had 15 of 22, 157 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 sack for a loss of 14 yards. Mike White got in. He didn't have an attempt, but he did get sacked for a loss of 11 yards. And then Davis Mills played the rest of the game for the Houston Texans. 10 completions for 22 attempts, 94 yards. And then let's get into some rushing stats. Savon Ahmed led the Dolphins with 12 carries of 99 yards. Chris Brooks followed him with 11 of 47. Raheem Mostert had a rushing touchdown. And aside from that, Devon Achane had a big 20-yard carry. But aside from that, he was pretty much a non-factor, 6 of 27. So in total, he averaged 4.5 yards. But aside from that 20-yard rush, damn near almost got less than 2 yards of rush. So definitely something that you want to see him get past the first line of scrimmage, and then that can be working well. Houston Texans, Damian Pierce was the leading rusher, 6 carries for 15 yards. Braxton Berrios was the Dolphin leading receiver, 3 receptions, 33 yards, 1 touchdown, longest of 18. Savon Ahmed was right behind him with 4 receptions, 32 yards, 1 touchdown. Cedric Wilson, 2 receptions, 31 yards. Julian Hill, 3 receptions, 31 yards. Everyone else was 25 yards or less with 1 reception, except for Arizona had 3. Let's see what else. Chris Brooks had a reception. It was an 18-yard touchdown, which you saw in the little highlight. Mike Boone was the leading receiver for the Houston Texans, 4 receptions, 35 yards. Johnny Johnson III, 2 receptions, 26 yards. Nico Collins, 2 receptions, 21 yards. Everyone else had 1 reception and was under 15 yards. Defense, Jamal Perry was the leading tackler, 4 total, 4 solo. Same with Bryce Thompson. Miles Dorn had a tackle for a loss, so did David Long Jr. I was really happy to see him out there on the field. I really liked what he's able to bring to this team. Channing Tindall had a pass deflection. Xavier Howard a pass deflection. So did Perry Nickerson with 2 pass deflections, and Randy Carlton had a pass deflection as well. No sacks, and I believe no tackles for a loss except for 1, 2. There was 2. Let me see the second one. Yeah, they were long. Okay. Houston Texans, DeVal Hewitt was the leading tackler, 7 total, 6 solo. Corey Littleton had 6 total, 6 solo. And then Denzel Perryman had a pass deflection. Khalil Davis had 4 QB hits with a tackle for a loss. Will Anderson had a sack, tackle for a loss, and a 1 QB hit. D'Angelo Ross had a tackle for a loss. Derek Rivers had a tackle for a loss. Adebayo Adelibi had a sack, tackle for a loss, QB hit. Jimmy Ward had a pass deflection. Sheldon Rankins had a QB hit. Jonathan Greenyard had a tackle for a loss. And Roy Lopez had a QB hit. Kick returns, nothing crazy. Devon Achane, 2 returns for 29 yards. Steven Sims had a big return, 1 return for 43 yards. Everyone else had 20 yards or less. Jason Sanders for 4 on extra points. Cameron Fairbairn had a field goal for 35 yards. Jake Bailey punted 4 times for 163 total yards, 2 of which were in the 20, longest of 51 yards. Cameron Johnston had 6 total punts, 277 yards, 1 touchback, 3 of which were in the 20, longest of 62. Now, takeaways, I already alluded to a couple of them, but I was very amused with what this offense was able to do. with the first stringers and second stringers, and guys who are fighting for position battles, guys who are more than likely making the roster. It's just now a fact of where we're going to place you, and so on and so forth. Are you going to be getting a lot more reps than this guy, so on and so forth. Offensively, I want to see a little bit more production out of the offensive line, given Teron Armstead was out, and I believe Liam Eichenberg was out too, but he's also part of that competition for left guard. So we're going to see. It's going to be very entertaining to see. Aside from that, short and sweet, Dolphins look good. Their next matchup is next week, next Saturday, 7 p.m. against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Don't expect any of the starters to play in that game. From my personal opinion, things could be different, but this game already had the Dolphins have their starting units out for the first quarter, and a little bit then some. Defense was still out there for that first quarter drive, so they had to finish it off. That went into the second quarter. Aside from that, I think we're looking good. A lot better than last week's performance, I'll tell you that. And it was great to see Tua out there. Just point and simple. I mean, the guy's been gone for almost a year, so it's tough. It's tough to see that, and then now we get back to it, and now he's finally back in uniform, in pads, throwing the ball, even though the first one was an interception. But aside from that, looking forward to next week's game. Guys that are going to be in the bubble, but next week for that game, I'm going to do a little bit more dissecting and tell you guys who is fighting for a roster spot, who is fighting for like a spread and position battle. Like we're going to go over like depth charts and stuff like that. So it should be entertaining. I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.